Well, I am excited to get to know you, Kenzie Wilson, and have you on the show. Welcome to the More Than Your Age podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I loved going through your podcast and finding things that were like, oh, hey, that's new. So I'm super excited to be here.
Well, good. I'm glad. So, our mutual friend Pat is the one who kind of connected us together, who we love. So, we got to give Pat a shout out. We love you, Pat. For the listeners,
Yes.
Pat was a guest on the episode. Oh gosh, I wish I had remembered the number, but it was about becoming a teacher in her 50s. And so go back if you haven't listened to it. She is just an incredible woman, but she recommended having you as a guest on the show. So I've been looking forward to hearing more of your story. And what's been cool is that you and I spoke, gosh, a few weeks ago, and hearing some of your story, I was like, ooh, this is going to be kind of a different perspective for the podcast and a different angle that I'm excited for the listeners to get to hear and have you share. And so when we did talk, you told me that a long time ago, growing up, college, earlier years, your vision and idea of success was always becoming CEO, climbing the top, being top dog, etc. And I'm just curious to know, so where did this idea come from? How did you have this mindset? Did upbringing have anything to do with it? Just curious about all that.
Yeah, so I am the oldest sibling, so that already comes with its own. We have our own thought process, right? Because we're the oldest. We know all the things. So I have a younger brother and a younger sister. We grew up essentially in the middle of nowhere, West Texas, like 30 minutes from the closest Walmart kind of living. But it was great because we all grew up on a ranch. My grandparents were up the road, cousins were up the road. So we were a very tight knit family. Being the oldest sibling, I had to look out for everybody. I have this thought process about me that I've got to go out there and like make a name for myself. We grew up in middle of nowhere, itty bitty town called Mertzen, and I want to make a difference. My parents were not college goers. So my dad was a car salesman. My mom was a secretary for the church and the youth minister for a long time. So we grew up very small town living. So I wanted to get out of that mold and kind of break what I'd known, kind of thing. So um, I just went to college and figured out like, hey, I can do this thing. So I kind of just went through the process of college, which if you've done that or you've done that with kids, it's not the funnest. It's not the greatest, especially when you're considered first generation. There's a lot of terms and acronyms and things that colleges throw at you that you're just not sure about. So I really kind of took that headstrong, which if you know me personally, I am like a competitor. I'm headstrong. I'm very black or white. There's no gray in my world, so to speak. So it was really easy for me to tackle that and just go through it. But I feel like uh, my personality of being an achiever, well, that's one of my top strengths is that I achieve. I'm a very to-do list oriented person. Granted, the to-do list never ends, but I love checking things off. I love that feeling of success, so to speak. So to me, success growing up was being that top dog, the person that you have to answer to, that knows all the things. Because I'm also one of those type of people that I'm gonna Google you. Like if you're gonna tell me that the grass is greener in, wherever, I'm gonna Google it and I'm gonna for sure fact check you. I'm one of those people, if that tells you anything. um, but like that top dog mentality, that CEO mentality just kind of came along as I grew up. I worked like three odd jobs in college, so to speak. I was like a front desk secretary. I tutored athletes, and then I worked at the church nursery. Um, so just like finding success in that own way, when you're a college student, finding a job, is not always the funnest. It's part-time and usually start at the bottom. But because I had this competitor attitude to me, I was like, okay, I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to slowly work my way up. And I'm just going to keep working my way up. But I want to be top dog. I want to be the people that you have to answer to. I want to have that and demand that respect kind of thing. Um, so it just kind of molded me into that achiever, Like I said, I'm probably a type 8A. I am the 8 Enneagram. I'm a competitor, that's just slowly that came my way of life. And that was probably because I'm an older sibling. And I wanted to be able to tell my siblings, hey, don't do this. I'm not kidding. Don't do this. But I just wanted to I want to be that top boss. I wanted to do the things. But slowly success has changed for me, and I didn't know that was possible. When you look up the word success, in the dictionary, it comes up very bland, so to speak. And it took me becoming a mom to realize like the word success in the definition has a little bit of gray to it. It doesn't have to be so black and white, and that you can apply it to whatever works best for you.
So, something I do want to ask you, kind of back to your upbringing. You said you came from a small town. When you were growing up in the small town, did you find that most people had the mindset that you stay here, you stay with your family, you work, you stay close, you're close here, and you don't kind of venture off? So you're nodding your head yes. So people had this mentality, and then what was it like then with having this mindset of like, no, I want to go away, I want to step away and do something completely different?
Yeah, so I know like when I left for college, I didn't go far, so to speak. I went like 2 hours away, but still, I didn't want to go to the local university because to me, that was just another high school reunion. Because everybody from around the area, that was the closest university, so that's where everybody went. And I just kind of wanted to break out of what the normal was because I'm one of those, I'm stubborn. I wanted to do something different and I wanted people to tell me, like, hey, you can't do this. Okay, cool. Because I'm the type of person that's going to do the opposite of what you tell me. My poor husband.
Mm-hmm.
But I just am one of those that, like, I don't want the mold, I don't want to fit in a mold, kind of thing.
How did people, especially in the small town, how did they view your mindset and your desire to not fit the mold, considering their idea was, well, no, you stay here and you're close to family, and that's what you do.
I think my parents had a hard time with it for sure. I'm the oldest, so it was hard for them too to kind of let go, so to speak. Um, but teachers were supported in a small town. I've only gone to one school my entire life. We started at pre-K and I went to the same campus until I was a senior. Like pre-K kids eat with seniors, you know.
Oh,
So
wow.
is that real small? I think I graduated with like 30 kids, you know. So we were super small. So I think the town was kind of supportive, but at the same time, it was just kind of like, okay, but everybody goes back. That's the part that's crazy to me as we get older, which I'll be the first to say, I'm kind of getting this pull back to hometown feeling. But it's crazy to me. I wanted to go out and see something different than West Texas.
Hmm. Well, so because you did have, you wanted to see something different and you did have this mindset when you were in college or even maybe slightly before, slightly after, what was your goal and vision for your life and what were you hoping to accomplish?
So, because there was nothing to do in our small town, I had played basketball our entire lives. We grew up in the gym. I was a definite gym rat. So I once went off to college. I was gonna play a little bit of college basketball and I got hurt. So I took a year off. I went back home, like worked some more odd jobs, did that kind of thing, and then I transferred to Texas Tech. But that whole like injury and going back home, like it was like I don't want to be here anymore. But it definitely took me out of town, so to speak, which was a good thing because it let me experience that. Like, hey, I was a 911 operator. I took some horrible calls as a 911 operator. Um, so it really changed my life. But being that gym rat that I wanted to still somewhat stay close to the sport. So I went to school for exercise sports science, which is funny now because I don't work in exercise sports science. But I wanted to run like I wanted to run like a YMCA. I wanted to be the CEO of a YMCA and just like make a difference in kids' lives through sports, because essentially that's kind of what got me out of my hometown, was being able to go play basketball somewhere.
Hmm. So you said, I want to touch base on this because I think this is so interesting. I didn't know this. You were a 911 operator. What made you decide to want to do that for a job?
So, like I said, I've always worked odd jobs. I was going to school for my associate's degree. I was working at the YMCA, and there was a nighttime 911 operator. So from like 4 p.m. to midnight, and then midnight to 8 a.m. So I would usually work that shift because it worked best with my school schedule and the YMCA job. Um, so I did that. It allowed me, to learn a lot about my small town, which I don't recommend ever being a 911 operator in the hometown that you grew up in. But it was definitely an experience. Being that calm on the voice, like on the other end of the phone, is crazy. I didn't ever think that I had that in me mentality wise, but it definitely opened up a different layer to me because, once again, I'm black and white. I don't do feelings. I'm too abrasive, so to speak. Like, I will speak my mind. And I really had to change a lot about the way that I speak to people when you're a 911 operator and they're in that crisis of their life kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and you said too, you don't do feelings or emotions. So because of that, like when you would hear, I would imagine crazy calls, how like did that did that affect you going home, or were you able to separate it?
So I'll tell you, the worst call I took, like I was still in training, and to see your address pop up on 911, like because that one, when you're in that booth and that phone goes off, like you can't miss the 911 call because it is a loud, like letting you know, hey, the phone's going off. But on the computer screen, it'll bring up the address first in the caller, and it brought up our ranch road, and I was like, what is going on? And then to pick up the phone and hear your grandma request a ambulance for your grandpa,
Oh gosh.
like I will never forget like that feeling of just like your stomach and everything and you dropping. That was like when I was in training. And then I had another horrible call of a family member being in a car wreck and just like running her driver's license, like those kind of things shake you. So for
Yeah.
someone like me that is not emotions, I don't, like feelings aren't my forte. It really shook me and I really struggled a long time like trying to bury those feelings and like not show emotion to people in the office. Because when I get in the office or when I'm in work mode, like, hey, we're in work mode. It's like a light switches on for me. Like, we've got a job to do, we got to do it. That goes back to being that achiever, all those things about me. So turning off those major emotions was a huge deal that really, I don't think if I hadn't have been a 911 operator, that I would be where I am today, like as a person, just because it made me tap into a side of myself that I've never wanted to tap into.
Yeah, I bet. Man, and I can't even imagine too, like you said, just having family members and you seeing their address pop up, or your address pop up, and like, wow, that's crazy. How long did you do that for?
I only did it for like less than a year because I knew I was transferring to Lubbock to go to Texas Tech. So I did it maybe a year of working that midnight, 8 a.m. shift and then going home and sleeping and then going to school and then going, you know, um, I don't think I could have done it much longer. And I don't think I could have done it in a bigger town personally. Like my
Mm,
emotional status would have been affected big time.
yeah, yeah, I bet. Wow, crazy. Well, okay, so you're back in Lubbock, and then you graduate college. what was your job after college, or what were you, because you mentioned too, you wanted to be CEO of YMCA and kind of go that sports route. Um, what happened next for you?
So while I was at Lubbock, I worked as a part-time nighttime secretary at a for-profit college called Virginia College there. And it really like opened my door to education and like what was out there. I always got asked like what my dream job was like growing up. My dream job would have been to be the pre-K teacher, but then also been the head varsity coach. And those two jobs just don't go together. Like that job does not exist. There's not a school small enough in the world that's going to let you teach pre-K and then also coach the varsity team. But working as that nighttime secretary. I eventually, once I graduated, I hung around in Lubbock a little bit more. So I got promoted to the daytime secretary, and then I got promoted to the registrar, campus administrator. So, like I said, that whole promotion thing was right in where I wanted to be, and it really opened the door to education for me. So, followed a boy to the Panhandle, and I started working for a junior college up there as a front desk supervisor, got my foot in the door, and then I got promoted to an academic advisor for them and ran a scholarship program for a long time, like, well, 3 or 4 years, until, got done, tired living in the Panhandle. And while there, I worked on my master's in higher education. So I still had that exercise sports science degree, that I had graduated with. But working in the education field, I was like, I really like this education life. I like this having conversations with kiddos, and it really opened up the door. And that's where it really started talking to kiddos about like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, if you could pick anyone in the crowd right now, who is it that you want to be to mirror their life? And just having those conversations daily with seniors, 18-year-old kids. I didn't feel like I really had that as a kid, so to speak. I didn't have someone that I could talk to that would break away from the small town mentality of, hey, you got to stay here. No one really asked me like where I wanted to go or what success looked like to me. So now I work with Miss Pat, um, and I am a college career and military readiness advisor. So I get to talk with ninth grade through 12th grade um, about what they want to do next and what next steps look like for them, and telling them that, hey, you don't have to do what your mom or your dad did. Like this is your life. Let's figure out what works best for you.
Mm-hmm. You said too that you didn't have anyone to kind of take that role for yourself when you were in high school. What do you think, like, your life would have had a different trajectory had you have had somebody kind of guiding you? Um, or where do you think that would have played an importance for you?
Yeah, I do think so because I know like I was in my last semester at Texas Tech and I was like, hey, I really like this education thing. Like I want to explore this more. Can I change my major? And they're like, no, you're about to graduate. That's not possible. Just graduate and then come back and get your master's or whatever, which is eventually what I did. Would I have
Mm.
less student debt? Yes, I would. So I try to have that conversation with kiddos too, like, hey, like, don't do the things I did. Be smart, kind of thing. But I think looking back in my life, like if I would have had an advisor or a secretary that more would have like had those awkward conversations with me, so to speak, and like kind of talk more about their life and like what worked for them and what didn't work for them, I think my life would have still ended up on the same path, so to speak, but I would have got here a lot faster.
Hmm. Well, at some point too, within all of this, you become a mother, and you told me, and you mentioned this a little bit at the beginning as well, that your vision of success changed. So why and how did that change?
So I had a COVID baby. He was born March 1st, and then the world shut down, 2 weeks later. So I got some extra extended maternity time with him. We were still remote working when I came back from maternity leave. So I got to be with him almost until he was almost 6 months. So I got that extended longer time with him. And raising a COVID baby was no joke. We ran out of diapers, we ran out of formula, we ran out of wipes. And trying to get family members to ship all that to us was loads of fun. But it really changed, like being home with your little one and becoming a mom, like just opened up a side of me that I didn't know existed. Once again, those feelings sides. Um, and really like made me realize the fluidity of success and that it didn't have to just be in the workplace. Like success could happen in your home and in your kids. So since then, I've had another little one. So the COVID baby's 4. We have a 1-year old, and then I am 6 months pregnant with our last one. So it's been very interesting to have different kids at different times and different jobs. But it's been a good one. It's been good.
So you said success can be in the home. Can you explain that a little bit more? What you mean by that?
Yeah, definitely. So success does not have to be that you are the top dog. You're not the CEO, so to speak. Success can happen in the walls of your house in the way that you build up your household. Even if you're not a mom and you don't have kids, it can be, that your house is spotless, or that you make bread, or that you have a garden, or you homestead, or that you and your husband have this amazing relationship where it's just you two against the world kind of thing. I think the workplace has made us think that success is being the CEO and the top dog, but success can also be equal happiness.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a really hard time like feeling like kind of like your mindset before. And I mean, I think a lot of people currently have that as well, is that like, I look at other people and I see these accolades and I see like all these accomplishments of what they've done, and like they look like they're doing all these great, amazing things, and they probably are. And then you compare it to yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm not even doing half of that or a third of whatever of what they're doing. And I just like the perspective that you have, that success doesn't have to be all these accomplishments. Like, great, it can be, but it can also be in the simplicity of life and everything, that you're doing the day to day. And what, if you have kids, what you're doing with your children at home. Even, you're saying you're working too. So you're working and you're also spending time with your children. And so the success in that as well. Do you think, though, that it is possible to, pursue success kind of like how you had envisioned prior and still be a great mother?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that's the great thing about success is sometimes in my world, success is getting the laundry switched over from the washer to the dryer in the same day. You know,
Yeah.
you know. Uh, so I think as moms, as adults, I think we need to give ourselves a little grace and find success in the not so common things. Because prior in my life, like the accolades, because those are in black and white, those are what I was chasing. That's what I was after. Because I wanted the title after my name. I wanted that CEO. I wanted the MED, that I currently have. Um, and all of that was for that outward thought process of me, so to speak. And it took becoming a mom to finally look at the inward and being like, the inward part of me and being like, hey, no one cried today. We're all good. Everybody got 3 meals. We're not in our PJs at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's success. Check. We're all good.
Yeah. That's funny. Oh man, I was going to ask you something. You said something and then oh, if I think of it again, I'll come back to that. Come back to it just regarding success and oh well, I forgot. It's okay. We'll then go back to what my other question will be for you. So for you as well, because you've said like I wanted the CEO MED, which you do have. How have you had to reconcile with your own terms of success and be okay that it looks different now?
Oh gosh, my husband will tell you that I'm probably not coping very well. But honestly, there have been some bumps in the road, so to speak. Like I've kind of been like, am I on the right path? Like for me, even though no one has ever said, Kinsey, you've had to be on this path. it's just like this mental block that I've put in my brain that like, hey, if I'm not CEO and I'm not top dog, I'm missing life, so to speak. So for me, it took some re-engineering of, hey, this is what matters. Um, those that are in my home, in the walls of my home, my kiddos, their health, their happiness. Um, so I had to learn to shift like everything of my thought process, and it's taken some bumps in the road, and I'm still learning, still trying to cope of how to let go, so to speak, because I'm still stubborn, right? So I still want to hold on to what I knew, what I've based 31 years of life on. Like, hey, this is gold. Um, so slowly learning to let go, let myself have some grace, and make a new definition of success for me.
Okay, I remember my question now. So, how much, and you can go as much into this if you want or not, but how much of the identity in a title has played into what other people think of you?
I think probably pretty high. I'm one of those who like I want respect, and I think respect comes with your title, so to speak, especially in the
Mm-hmm.
workplace. So I think it probably goes hand in hand. I've had to learn like because I do probably sometimes do come off as abrasive and I'm very black and white and be like, sorry, like that's the way it is. I've tried to like use humor, which I'm not the most best humorous person ever. Jokes don't go very well with a black and white person, you know. So so I've tried to use humor as a means of, hey, to lighten this subject or make it like better or cool. But I'm always one of those people like, hey, if you ever need anything, reach out to me. Like, hey, call me, do this. Like, let's reconnect on this. I probably said this wrong. I'm also, my husband will tell you, I apologize 100 times. Like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't do that. Or, I'm more willing to take the blame for anything just to lighten the load because I know I come off as like abrasive and black and white, and I seem mean and tough.
Hmm. So, in your current profession, you said you're a college, career, and military advisor for high school students, and you help prepare kids for life after college. So, when you do talk to them about life after school, what are conversations like when discussing success with your students now that you have a different perspective? How have you been able to offer guidance in a new light to them?
So I definitely started out with like, hey, what is your definition of success? Like, what do you want to do to be considered successful? Not only to you, but to those around you. Like, what is going to make you feel successful at the end of the day? You know, and you'll get those oddball answers from kids like, hey, I want to make three-figure, I want to make that six-figure job as an engineer. And I'm like, okay, do you like math? And their answer is no. I'm like, okay, well, then we need to rethink this. But talking to kids too, I can be like, hey, so this is what I did. I don't recommend this. Here's why. Like, hear my side of the story, hear what I did wrong, and hopefully you'll be smarter than what I was and make a difference this way, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Have they been pretty receptive, or how has that been with the students regarding all those things?
So high school students are always fun, right? 18 years old, you're on top of the world. You're going to do this, you know, you've got your own mindset, and to hear somebody else that like has a different mindset than you, so to speak, most of them, are more than willing to brush you off kind of thing. In our school system, though, we're a little bit different. We are mainly credit recovery. And then we let kids, they were self-paced. So kiddos could graduate. If they have all their credits and meet the requirements, they could graduate tomorrow. We're not the traditional 4-year plan. So a lot of these kids already come to you a little beaten and a little broken by the public school system. So it's our job to build them back up. But I think doing that, and we definitely do that. Miss Pat is one of those amazing people that does that. Our motto, our mission statement is like providing hope. So if I can provide hope through telling a kid, hey, even though this happened in your life, and even though you came here and you graduated in 3 years, don't let that hold you back. Like, that is successful in itself. You hold a high school diploma now, and you're doing things that other people wish they could do. You just did it faster. So I'm always trying to like spin conversations with kiddos, especially our kiddos, because they're so hard on themselves, already negative about things. So I just want them to realize, like, hey, you did a thing. That's success. Congratulations, that's a check mark.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Can you think of, and I didn't prep you with this one, but off the top of your head, could you think of a story of a student, and without saying their name, but just a story of someone who, um, like that you worked with, and you saw this version of whatever success looked like for them, and like just a proud moment being their advisor?
Oh yeah. And I'll tell you, like these kiddos, who some of the stories and the baggage and the stuff that they have in their lives, like it tugs at your heartstrings. So to hear kiddos that, there's a broken relationship at home, or, all of those things are just, oh. But I have one student right now who, she is kind of the caregiver for her siblings. So she is real hit or miss on when she comes to school, because she has to take care of the kiddos. And if you have small children, you know that sickness is rampant, especially right now in the winter months. So this poor senior misses some school and all of that stuff. But she is one of my top performing kids in dual credit. She's working on getting both high school credit and college credit at the same time. She has big plans to go to UTA, and get her degree there. We just got to get her there. But just to hear her, and she is one of the sweetest individuals ever. But I'm super excited to get her through these last couple of credits that she needs. She's meant to graduate in May. She's going to be one of our top 10% students. So I'm really, it makes my heart happy to know where we started and where we're going to end up. And when we get there, when she and I have that final senior meeting that we have to have, I'm going to tell her, hey, this is success. You did it. You completed this kind of thing. So I'm super excited to have that meeting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And especially like you're saying, for her specifically, she's, I'm sure there's way more that and that we don't know, or that, still going on as far as just having to care for her siblings. Like that's a big responsibility when you're 17, 18 years old, and younger, because I know that started earlier for her. And so being able to just like work hard and be in the top 10%, like that's huge when you have so much that you have to deal with at home as well. And so, and then also just you specifically, Kenzie, being able to work with her and then other students as well. Like what a rewarding job, to get to see and witness. And you also mentioned too the fact that you have two children and one on the way. And when kind of jumping ships a little bit, when we spoke previously, you had mentioned that you had a word of the year this year, and your word is home. Can you say, tell us why you chose this word, and then what does it mean for you, especially regarding with what we've been talking about?
Yeah, so going back to, black and white, I like to focus on one thing, and that word this year is home. And part of that comes from me and my husband want to really get closer to like homesteading and that kind of stuff. So I've started making our own butter. I
Yeah.
make our own bread. So I'm trying to like also step out of my comfort zone as well and start making things more convenient, um, more at home than convenience of the store. So I was like, hey, I want to do homesteading because, we're going to have our garden again this year. We're going to do this. And the more like I just focused on it, I really wanted to condense that to home because my oldest is 4, so we're at that point um, of talking about school and all those things, and then having a 1-year-old who's now walking, and then bringing in another life in this world. I really wanted to be more present in home. I have the flexibility of remote working, and then I also travel a lot for work, and I felt bad like that I wasn't, so to speak, present in my home. Last year's word was joy, and we had the surprise pregnancy that we weren't planning. So trying to find joy in that. And then I was like, okay, now that I've gotten my joy, and I found my joy in my kiddos, now I want to be home and experience that joy that we focused on last year.
Mm-hmm. And as far as just like being present, how has that transformed already? And then where are some areas with that that you would say, okay, I still want to continue working on being present? Like, how does that actually look like?
So I'll tell you, like, that has meant me putting up my phone at night, because I'm that achiever, and I'm gonna answer your email. It's gonna be 6 o'clock at night, and you emailed me about work. Okay, cool. I'm gonna respond right now, even though it's outside of my working hours, because I don't have the ability to like turn off my work mode and turn into mom mode. So like, and my husband still has to get on to me for this because, we're undoing a lot of years, so to speak. But
It'll
that's been
take
the
time.
major way of like, hey, yes, yeah, definitely. It'll take me some time. But that's one way that I'm trying to be more present in home. Um, my 4-year old is country as country gets. Like he wants to ride bulls and ride horses. That's the lifestyle that we live. So trying to get him in more things like that, like we've signed him up to ride sheep. So just getting to be in those kiddos' lives and make that difference, has really struck that feeling side of me, so to speak.
I did not know riding sheep was a thing.
Mutton busting is what it's called. Um, so yes, it is a huge thing. They do it at all the rodeos. So now that my son is old enough, he gets to potentially ride a sheep. So that'll be an interesting feat in itself. But he's the type of kid that you could send outside and he's gonna pretend to ride his bull for 8 seconds, then get bucked off. Wave his hat, take his cowboy hat, all of that. So I don't want to miss those moments.
Yeah. That's really cute. That's definitely the difference, country girl, city girl, right there. Because I'm like, wait, what? That is the cutest thing. So, okay, because I know the school you work at is in the DFW Metroplex. Do you live in the Metroplex, or are you? Because you said earlier too that you're now kind of
No.
thinking to be more closer to the small town.
So our brand is all over the state of Texas. So I actually service and advise 11 different high schools. I start in the West Texas area, Brownwood, Comanche, and then go to like Waco and go all the way up to DFW, where I have the Arlington, Irving, Fort Worth schools. So I've got 11 schools about in there, which is a healthy population of difference of kids, difference of lifestyles. But we live outside of Stephenville, in a little town there, and we love it. We love the small town living. We didn't get far away from that, but living in Lubbock and all that stuff. I won't live in a town as big as Lubbock ever again.
I love it. Going back to the roots, when you wanted to get away from it, I think that's, I think that's cool. I like hearing that. Okay. Well, moving on along a little bit, I just got a couple more questions for you. So, I mentioned this slightly earlier that it can be difficult for women, mothers or whoever, to feel like they aren't doing the best things like some other women because of whatever the success in their mind that they've dreamt of what that should look like, whether it's like the CEO or the mom who's doing it all and can make everything and whatnot. And so their level of success looks better. And so for you personally, like I feel like you've been working on this really well. How have you had to combat negative comparisons with other women who do appear to be far more successful or better off than you, especially in those categories that you have said you've always wanted?
Yeah, definitely. So education is predominantly female. And I'll never forget, like, when my first kiddo was sick and like having to request time off, like I felt so guilty. Like, and I don't know why, as a mom, I felt so guilty when my kiddo was sick. Like, hey, y'all pay me to have sick time. Just because it's not for me, it's still in my home. Like, why can't I use this for my kid? And I would like to kick the person in the face that made moms feel and women feel like, hey, you got to be in the workplace. Like, this is where you were meant to be, kind of thing. I think women, especially here lately, have our narratives have changed, and COVID kind of brought that around. I think that's one plus of COVID is people realize, like, hey, I want to be home. I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for me. And that's something that I've definitely had to struggle with too, is like, I'm no longer answering to somebody else. I'm now trying to answer to me. And I don't know if I like me as a boss yet, but I'm working on it. Did I lose you?
I think we did, but I think we're okay. We're still recording, but I can edit all this out.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, and so with that, you were saying too, like, we've had this mom guilt of feeling like, oh, I can't take off. I feel guilty for taking a sick day, when it's like, well, we have to. And um and like for you too, as far as seeing, like, dealing with that, but then also seeing other women achieve maybe accolades that you have always wanted. Is that a struggle at all now, or is it more of like, no, I know that my home base, like the thing that I want to focus on is home, being present. Has that is that currently a struggle, or if not, great. If
Oh,
so,
yeah,
how are you working through
definitely.
that?
Yeah, and that probably goes back to that I'm still a competitor, ex-athlete kind of thing. I'm always looking for someone that I can quote unquote beat, that I can say, hey, I'm doing better than you, kind of thing. So I'm still struggling with that, so to speak. I'm trying to change my focus. Instead of looking for someone else to beat, I'm trying to beat the past version of me, like the person I was yesterday. If I can do better than the person I was yesterday, then I'm winning. I'm performing better than that person. But it's
Yeah, I
still a
like.
struggle. I wish I could say it's that easy.
Oh yeah, and I think, I mean, because that's what like, women in general, like, we're gonna struggle with something. But I really like the perspective too that you have to say, like, I want to compete against the past version of myself as opposed to competing against some other woman. Because it's super easy for us to like look at somebody else and what they're doing, and either want to be better or say like, I can't be as good as them. But then, like you're saying, working on this perspective of, okay, instead of focusing on them, let me focus on myself and see, like, how can I be better than how I've been in the past. And so I like that perspective. Well, Kenzie, I have my last question
And
for
I'll
you is a
say,
question. Oh, go ahead.
no, you're good. Um, I stole that from Matthew McConaughey. It was one of his speeches. And he talks about in 10 years, his role model, like that's who he's chasing. So I find that really interesting too, looking ahead. My role model is me. It's not somebody else. It's who I want to be in 10 years. So how do I get to that person in 10 years?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Matthew. We appreciate that. Okay, so Kinsey, my last question for you, which is a question that I like to ask everybody. The podcast is usually geared towards being more than your age and not being defined by the age that you are, so that it's not limiting you to pursue the things and the goals that you want to do. And so, in your case specifically, I mean, it wasn't so much age, but it was more so not being defined by this success, and what that has meant to you in your life, and like still being okay with your life situation and pursuing still what you want to do, where you have this job you love, but also you want to be a present mother. And so if you could encourage one woman who does feel blocked or limited to pursue a dream or a goal based on her age, or specifically life circumstance, or like an idea, kind of like the success idea, what would you tell her?
Whew, it's a tough question because I wish I would have told myself that probably earlier. I think that goes back to that quote of, being better than what you were yesterday and chasing the person that you want to be in 10 years. So, what breaks you out of that mold? What breaks you out of that idea? What breaks you out of that age barrier that you've set for yourself? Because at the end of the day, it's you. Nobody else is living your life, no one else is making your decisions. It's all up to you, which is such a scary thing to think about. But it's your life, it's your world, and you get to control that.
Awesome. Thank you, Kenzie. So congrats to you on baby number 3 on the way. You said you're 6 months. So at the time of this recording, 6 months pregnant. When is your due date?
It is the last week in May, and we
No
are
way.
having a little girl.
You
So
are.
May 28th.
Oh my gosh, Kenzie, I am also pregnant and I am due May 30th.
Oh, yay!
And we're having a girl too.
Yes! See, that's exciting. Now, my 2 boys are excited about it, but we'll see what happens. I'm still trying to get over the fact that I'm not just a boy mom. So I'm really interested to see how this season goes for me.
Yeah, that now you got another shift to work on. Like, oh, no longer a boy mom. I mean, you're still a boy mom because you have boys, but
Right,
anyway.
right.
Well, I'm excited for this next season for you. I'm excited also just for your new perspective on your life and your word of the year and what that's going to just transpire into, for the rest of 2024. And so, Kenzie, I just appreciate you taking the time to talking with us and sharing this new vision and idea of what success looks like. And I think that that's going to be able to help other women. So thank you so much, Kenzie, for joining the More Than Your Age podcast.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. Can't wait.